Hello again, and welcome once more to Denton's Tales. Now, I've mentioned how Nornir would appear at the birth of a child, and they would decide its fate in life, and then they would watch over it. And the outcome of that could often depend on the personality of the individual Norn herself. Yes, because she could project her own personality into the child. Now, if you were lucky, your life was mapped out by a nice Norn. Everything would be totally boner. You'd prosper and you'd live happily ever after sort of thing. Oh, life would be fantabulosa. But if you weren't lucky, and your particular Norn was, well, a bit of a shit, really, oh dear, yes, things might not work out so well. No, not by a long way. See, this was clearly a way of explaining why some people were lucky in life and they prospered, while others were unlucky and didn't. In the poem Ragnarsmal from the Poetic Edda, Loki meets a dwarf named Andvari, who is a fish. Now, I don't mean he was just a small fish. No, he is an actual dwarf, but he is living as a fish, which is a bit unusual, one must admit. And he explains his rather curious fishy lifestyle to Loki by saying that a miserable Norn, as he puts it, shaped him when he was young, and that is why he had to live in the water. Loki, being Loki, I'm sure was saying to himself, "No, why didn't I think of that? Well, that's a good trick." Well, actually he did just that later on. Snorri tells us the same concept in the Prose Edda, saying that happy people had a happy Norn watching over them. Tra-la-la-la-la, joy and gladdery all around, the flowers are coming up lovely. Oh, everything is just beautiful. While miserable people were watched over by, obviously, I suppose, a miserable Norn. So if you had prospered from birth, you were happy and wealthy, and everything in the garden was lovely, you had been shaped by a good Norn, and she guided your destiny in the best possible way. But, oh, if nothing had ever gone right for you, your wife ran off with Olaf from the next village, your crops failed, the cat died, and you were damn miserable, well, tough shit, dear. You were the produce of a really miserable gloomy guts who made you as miserable as she was herself, and your life was pretty much, well, screwed. I suppose this is also another indication that there were a considerable number of Nornir, since it's rather unlikely that just 3 could have sort of spread themselves around like that. Plus the fact that these good or miserable Nornir, as the case might be, are not named. They are mentioned by title, not personal name, another suggestion that the 3 names derived from the concept of the Greek more. One thing that is clear about the Nornir is that they had allotted someone a precise time period, and you could not go beyond that point. It was decided and could not be altered. When it's your time to go, you go. Sorry about that. Off you pop. That's your lot. So there you are. And that concept is repeated throughout Norse literature. In one of the poems, a character says that one cannot live even one evening following the decree of the Nornir. The day of your death is set, and on that day you die, regardless of any other consideration. It is set in stone, as the saying is. Go into battle, ride out a storm at sea, or lie in bed doing absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter in the least. If that is the day you die, then you die. No matter what you do or you don't do, you're going belly up, and you'll be on your way to the goddess Hel in Niflheim if you died in a normal sort of non-combat manner, or you'll be carried aloft by the Valkyria to feast with Odin in Valhall if you expired heroically in battle with a weapon in your hand. If it's not your time to die, well, you can walk through a battle without even a shield. Don't bother with a helmet or armor or anything like that. Arrows whizzing past all around you, you're still going to survive. You cannot die. But if it is your time to pop off, well, you can wear 2 sets of armor and carry a shield in both hands without it doing you any good at all. You can hide in the cellar, or maybe a house will just collapse on top of you. Or you walk outside the door and you get hit by a runaway horse. You are not going to be around the following day. No. You may get to 1 minute to midnight on the allotted day, but you'll snuff it at some time during the next 60 seconds. That's it. That is what is going to happen. It's quite possible that belief was part of the fierce fighting spirit of the Norse when they went Viking, or Vikinger, as it was in Old Norse, til fara Vikinger, when they went on raids abroad or they fought other Norsemen at home. If today is not the day you die, well, then you are invincible in battle. Nothing can harm you. So you can charge into combat without fear. You will prevail. You will cover yourself with honor and glory at your courage. But if it is your day to die, then die you will, regardless of whether you fight or you run away. So you may as well fight with all the ability and strength you have. Die with honor and be remembered for your mighty prowess in your final battle. And of course get that Valkyria free horse taxi ride to feast with the gods. That's a nice little bonus. Either way, you will fight to the maximum of your ability, and you will fight without fear, because what will happen regardless of what you do. So you might as well be remembered as a brave warrior rather than a cowardly custard who ran away. That seems to make sense to me, at any rate. There is an interesting question regarding all that. One I haven't really ever seen mentioned, and that is the warriors taken to Valhall to feast with the gods. Was their death day set by the Nornir, or decided by Odin overriding the Nornir? That is a very good question. You see, the death of a great warrior was often chosen by Odin himself at the time it actually occurred, since he wanted the finest warriors he could get for his army of the dead to fight in the great battle of Ragnarok. Now, if he saw a superb warrior going in to fight a mediocre one, the sort of warrior who draws his sword and promptly drops it, obviously he is going to be killed by the better warrior, thus sending an inferior man up to Valhall when Odin wanted the other one, the good warrior. So, in a case like that, he would send the Valkyria to make sure the right man won. In other words, he cheated. He rigged the game, you could say. But had the Norns decided that would happen? They already knew that fight would occur, and Odin was destined to make that choice. Or was it, in fact, an on-the-spot choice by Odin himself, altering the fate of two men to suit himself, and thus overruling the Nornir? It could be argued either way. And in Greece, it seems that Zeus was not compelled to follow the decree of the Morai. He could do his own thing, if you like, which he usually tended to do, though the other gods, they were bound to obey them. So could Odin do the same? Was it the fate of those two men that the great warrior would kill the lesser one, as would be inevitable without outside interference, and Odin stepped in and altered their fate? Or was his interference itself part of a preordained fate for all three of them? That could get a bit of a debate going. Yeah, okay. One can also ask if people prayed to the Nornir, ask them to, bend the rules a little bit, extend one's life. Oh, grant me another year, even a month, a day, just an hour, 10 minutes more, or 10 minutes more, what I wouldn't give. Maybe some did, though I'd rather doubt it, given the belief that the date was set and the clock was ticking, or rather in those times the marked candle was burning down, or the hourglass had been turned over. And that idea of the inevitability of fate and the acceptance of it was very strong throughout all the Old Norse stories. There really would have been no point praying to the Nornir. They were not deities that could really be appealed to, and presumably they, even would they do it, even if they could, which they probably couldn't. I can't see how they could change their own rules just because somebody asked them very nicely, said pretty please, and sacrificed a goat. So I doubt anyone actually prayed to them for an extra 5 minutes or something at the end. Now, to finish, I must mention the saga account of weaving fate or destiny on a loom, since that is what the Nornir were supposed to do, but of course they didn't actually do it. They carved on sticks. However, on one occasion, the Valkyria did. Oh yes, the Valkyria. Now it must be noted that one of the Valkyria is also mentioned as being a Norn, schooled, the youngest of the three Norns in fact. But that is the only connection between the Norns and fabric, and in this case of course she would have been acting in her Valkyria role, not her Norn role. Now this story comes from Njál's saga, and it involves a man who observes 12 women enter a stone hut in Cave Ness in Scotland in the year 1014 AD, and it revolves around an event in Ireland. Now the date of the particular event the saga is talking about in this case could be very important. Clearly the saga dates from well into the 11th century, which is quite late in the so-called Viking Age. And that may have had a bearing on the tale. See, Iceland had been converted to Christianity almost 15 years previously. And in Ireland, many Norse people were Christian by that time. In fact, the majority of them would have been. The old ways were declining, gradually being pushed aside by Christianity across the lands that the Norse had settled in, as well as in Scandinavia itself. The Norse king of Dyflin, as Dublin was known then, Sigurd Olafsson, for example, was a Christian himself. So influences outside of traditional Norse beliefs could well be starting to creep into the sagas by that time. Anyway, to get back to the man in Cave Ness and the women in the hut. Now this is exciting stuff. Now he sneaks over and he looks through a little crack, curious as to what these women are doing. And I'm sure he wished he hadn't. The women are Valkyria, and they have set up a loom. Now, where they got it from, I don't really know. They didn't seem to have it with them when they went in, so it must have been in the building. But why? Since the battle I'm going to talk about hadn't happened yet, but there it was anyway. And it was a very special loom. Oh, yes. Now, this wasn't your normal, use it in a little cottage living room sort of loom. Oh, no. This is presumably a special Valkyria issue loom. And it was made from the body parts of dead men. Yes. Yes, leftover bits of dead men, presumably from a previous battle they had attended, and quite a few souvenirs, you could say. And on it, they are weaving the fate of warriors who are taking part in the Battle of Clontarf, being fought just outside Dyflin on Good Friday in 1014 AD. Now, they're greatly enjoying themselves. Oh, yeah, they're having a rare old time, apparently, gleefully weaving away, deciding the destiny of the warriors on their deceased man-bits loom, using severed heads as weights, intestines for the warp and weft, and a sword for the shuttle, blood-covered spears for spindles, and arrows for reels. They're totally charming. And they're singing happily to themselves. Oh, they are having such a great time. They're singing a cheerful little ditty, and it went as follows. How awful it is to be without, as blood-red wrack races overhead. Is the welkin gory with warriors' blood, as we Valkyria war songs chanted? Yes, quite interesting. When they're finished, they tear the resulting, well, whatever you want to call the undoubtedly rather messy and soggy result into of their efforts into 12 pieces. Quite how you would tear it when it was all gooey, I don't know. Anyway, they do. And each woman takes one, saying, "Start we swiftly with steeds unsaddled, heads to battle, with brandished sword." Charming little sort of bedtime story for children, isn't it? Anyway, then they mount their horses and they ride off. 6 of them going north, the other 6 going south. But, you might ask, why in Cave Ness deciding anything about a battle in Ireland? I mean, Cave Ness is in Scotland, and it's just about the furthest point in Scotland that you could actually get from Ireland without falling off into the North Sea. Getting any further from Ireland would require a boat. You know, if they'd just gone to the Hill of Howth in Dublin Bay, well, Clontarf would have been right down below them, a couple of miles away. But no, they decide to do it way over there in Scotland. Then they ride off, going north and south, presumably to do their dead warrior collecting thingy on the battlefield, since they do mention hensing to battle. But you know, Clontarf is actually southwest from Scotland, so you could say they all went in the wrong direction. Yes, whatever about the loom, I think they could have done with a good map as well. So that is the mention of weaving as it relates to fate, not having anything to do with the Nornir. Which brings us to the end of this look at those women who decided just how lovely and boner or how shitty your life was going to be back in the Viking Age and how long you had to enjoy it, or otherwise, as the case might be, which ultimately was up to them to decide. And of course you just hope you got a good one. You don't want one of the other kind. So, that's it for this time. Goodbye for now. I hope you enjoyed.